Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here in June. I very welcome my friends and especially my enemies. Come in, sit down, no touching. I don't do the touching. Are you feeling charitable? Then smash the subscribe button, like button and the share button, and please do follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Why I love the Snyderverse. Listen. Before I saw Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, and I think this goes for all of us, none of us asked for a Superman and Batman and a DC universe set in the real world that was raw and gritty and realistic, and where Superman was going to break Zod's neck, and where Superman and Batman were going to be reconstructed, or sorry, should I say deconstructed, to be reconstructed. These are things, no matter how much you love the Snyderverse, as much as I love the Snyderverse, we didn't ask for any of this. But here's the thing. I just feel that when you see those movies and you see the core issues they're working with, it's very representative of what's going on now with COVID and what's happened with Trump and how the world's changed. It really is in that world where the public are so mistrusting of Superman, right? And interestingly enough, I suppose you could say Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor is maybe a bit of a Trump, but really he's really more of a mad genius. And I think someone explained it beautifully. He's so clever he can't control himself, and it's turned him insane. He's got a lot of issues. He was abused by his father psychologically and physically. Now, in Smallville, Lex was mainly abused emotionally. When you think about seeing his mother smother his baby brother and what Lionel did to him. I mean, he got a few slaps in the face when he was older, obviously, when he was a grown man from Lionel. But in the Snyderverse, Lex Luthor is a young man who's very intelligent. He's obviously insane, and he hungers for power. He wants to control and rule the world. And he doesn't understand why Superman's been gifted this power. He sees him as a false god, and he wants everybody to see that he's a fraud, as he says in that discussion with Superman. And so I must admit, when Eisenberg was announced as Lex, I think we were all surprised. This is part of what I'm talking about. We were all surprised. None of us would have chosen him. But then I remember thinking to myself, it's a bit like Ben Affleck. I was a bit taken aback when his casting was announced. And with Jesse, I was thinking this is one of the greatest independent actors, indie actors of this generation. There's no question of the man's talent. And so I went with it. And by going with it, he may not be the Lex Luthor that I think of from Smallville, from the comics, from the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve, even like the Superman Returns version with Kevin Spacey. But this is a different Lex Luthor. This is a younger Lex Luthor. And again, just like most of the Snyderverse, is very, very New 52 focused. So this is the New 52 Lex Luthor. Like the Suicide Squad's Jared Leto's Joker is a New 52 Joker. And they're a bit like Marmite, those versions of these characters, because some people thought the New 52 was a brand new, beautiful brand new reinvention, and some people thought it was a piece of shit. And I think this is what happens with the Snyderverse. That's why some people absolutely adore it and think it's the Lord's work, and some people think it's absolutely terrible. And because it's subjective, isn't it? And all art is subjective. So none of us, first of all, in discussing why I love the Snyderverse, I never asked for this. But one thing I've always loved is the serious and dark and the gritty over the light and the middling and the watered down. And one thing you can say about the Snyderverse, it's all of those things that I've always loved. And so it's dramatic, it's serious, the acting's great, the writing's great as far as I'm concerned. The music's loud and brash, operatic, just like I like my movies and TV dramas to have. So it has everything that floats my boat. I like new ideas, I like reinventions, that's why I like Smallville. A lot of people hated Smallville. There was a divide with Smallville, like there is with the Snyderverse, by the way. A lot of people hated Smallville because they changed the history of Superman. Lex Luthor and Clark being friends didn't like that. Other elements of Lois Lane and things like that, and even the reason why Lex is bald. The meteor shower, there was a lot of changes. But the changes that Alan Miles gave us for Smallville made the universe and the story even greater than before. it's a deep examination of two characters, really, Clark Kent and Lex Luthor, for the first 7 years, and it's done so expertly by Gotham Miller. And I think this is what the Snyderverse. Snyder loved Smallville. He used to sit there with his kids and watch it. So he was inspired by this new take that Gotham Miller did. And I think he looked at himself as a pioneer as well, which he is. It with Watchmen 300, and his zombie movie, which I forgot, is the one James Gunn wrote, right? But he's a pioneer. And as I said on today's DCEU Daily, the Snyderverse isn't bad. It's different. Now, I've never seen it as bad, but the people who hate it, it's because it's different. People hate me because I'm different. I go on Instagram and stuff and dance topless and do raps. That's different, isn't it? It's about body positivity. It's about showing people I've got a crap body. I'm nearly 48 years old. I'm nothing special, but I want to say to the world I'm proud of my body. I'm proud of myself. I've got an operation scar going down my belly button, really visible one. I had an open wound because I had erupted ulcers, right? But I'm not ashamed. I'm not ashamed that I've got a bump on my head and I haven't got the perfect face. So I want to inspire people. And you inspire people by being different. And Zack Snyder doesn't have to try to be different. I don't have to try to be different. I am different. I am a freak. And what he wants to do is do something more raw, gritty, darker, because that's the angle that he comes from. I still feel he can do humor and all of that, but the point is he's not interested in watered down storytelling. He wanted to put these characters in the real world, as did Nolan and as did Goya. But basically, BVS is Zack Snyder's vision. Totally Zack Snyder's vision. And I think these are discussions they probably had during Man of Steel. So, this is a two-part story that's got to continue. This was the disappointment of Justice League. It wasn't what they were going for, what Zack was going for. And for all of us who love the Snyderverse, that was terribly heartbreaking. Never to know what was going to happen in the continuation of the Nightmare sequence. And these are the reasons that I like the Snyderverse. The effects, the way it looks so beautiful, the emotion, the character development, the core commentary in the real world, and the commentary about how someone as strong as Superman can be able to kick the shit, kill that guy in the bar who throws an empty can of beer at him, but he looks at him and he goes, "Nah, you're not worth it, but I will fuck up your truck, but at least I'm not going to kill you," right? Exactly what Clark does to Whitney in the pilot of Smallville. He gets Whitney's car and he piles it up on the top of the other cars, right? It's a little bit of revenge, but it's not hateful, right? He's just getting his own back. And for Clark, that's better than actually killing him, because that's not what Clark stands for. It's not how the Kents brought him up. So even in this universe, and then you've got the people who don't understand the Snyderverse who call Superman evil Superman, just because his heat vision glows up in a different way and he looks very kind of devilish when it happens. But Snyder's not doing it because of that. There's no such thing as evil Superman. The only evil Superman I've ever seen is on Smallville when he's on Red K, Superman 3, and in the Nightmare sequence, right? That's purposely done. But the main Superman in Man of Steel and BVS isn't evil. He's not being accepted. He's being rejected. He's under so much pressure. It was his father's dream for him to become this. And, he's got a lot of pressure on his shoulders. And so he's not evil, but in Batman vs. Superman, he's not very, very happy. In Man of Steel, he's too busy trying to save the world. He hasn't got time to reflect and think. But in this film, there is a reflection about what happened in Man of Steel and the way the media are talking about him and how the senator from Kentucky wants him not to be political. And because as far as she's concerned and all these people in the media, every act is a political act. It's an analysis. So in those terms, everything I'm doing now is a political act. I'm not quite sure if I agree, but that's the point. It's a debate. And it's interesting in Man of Steel, is it when, I can't remember who says it, people fear what they don't understand. That's a brilliant line, and it's not just relevant in the Snyderverse, it's relevant in our world in the reaction of Man of Steel and Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. People hate what they don't understand. People hated Batman versus Superman because they plainly didn't understand it. It's not why they bought their ticket for. They wanted to see an easy, watered-down, popcorn-chomping movie where Batman and Superman beat each other up and become friends. Ultimately, they do become friends in this movie, but this is not how they wanted to see a Batman and Superman movie. Don't forget, this is the first time in a live-action movie where Batman and Superman are in the same movie. It was a big event. And people thought it was going to be a big, bright, inspirational mainstream event. But this is not what Snyder's aiming for. And somehow he was allowed to do it. And I'm glad that he was. But then it became reactionary because the reaction to BVS was so dark. It was so raw. It was so poisonous. It was so toxic. I've never seen a reaction to a movie like that before. I mean, The Passion of the Christ, directed by Mel Gibson, was a very controversial take on how Christ was crucified and why and who decided it. Very controversial. And I don't think the divisiveness or the anger towards Gibson was as much. And there was anger towards him because that was a bigger statement to make than anything Snyder did in MOS or BVS. But the difference is that these are 70, 80-year-old characters. And people have defined interpretations and ideas of what they are. And Snyder challenged that. And this is why people didn't like it. He took away the red trunks. People didn't like that. In Man of Steel, he's a much angrier Superman at times. You think you can threaten my mother? I love that bit. I'm clenching the air. But a lot of people, that's not what Superman did. Oh, the petrol explosion. Superman would care. What about people dying? It's not that he doesn't care. In that moment when he sees Martha being attacked and threatened, he loses it. He's getting angry because he's not the Superman that we know yet. And that's the whole point. In Reeves and Donner's verse, he doesn't have to earn the right to be Superman. But what Snyder is doing is saying he can't just put the costume on and be the Superman that we know and love. He has to earn it. In Smallville, he has to earn it. Clark goes through all these things. He has darker moments. He has inspirational moments. But there's a lot of trials and tribulations for Clark in the decade run of Smallville. And finally, he earns the right to call himself Superman. Do you understand? And this is the same thing that Snyder's doing within the Snyderverse. He's saying that, firstly, Superman has to earn the right to be Superman, the Superman that we know and love. And Batman has gone through so much shit. He's bitter, he's twisted, he's angry. And he's going to take it all out on Superman. And he's being manipulated by Luthor, as Superman is. Superman is investigating Batman. He's been manipulated to do so from what he's seeing on the news. Luthor's stirring the pot. And the ultimate pot is for both of them to die. And with them out the way, he can run the show. He's found these other metahumans. He believes maybe he could control them through blackmail. Having information, having the picture of Diana, having proof that Diana is so many hundreds or thousands of years old, whatever she is, right? And he thinks he can leverage the metahumans, maybe even use the metahumans. If he can't kill Batman and Superman, if he can't manipulate them to kill each other, maybe he can get these other metahumans to do so. I saw this on a hot take on a YouTube channel, and I agreed with it, and I thought, yeah, I've got to talk about that here. So I think that could be something that was in Snyder's mind. So very interesting. Snyder's a very smart director and a smarter storyteller. He thinks very deeply. He looks at the real world around him, and he puts these things into his movies. Now, a lot of diehard DC fans will say, we do not want our superheroes in the real world, especially Superman. We want these to be fantasy characters. I understand that, and I think with the multiverse a strategy now, that can happen. You can have an Earth 1 brighter Superman and Batman, and it can be different. And the Snyderverse can continue over on HBO Max. But don't forget, this is interesting for me to love the Snyderverse because I grew up with the Batman 60s TV series. Really funny, really camp. I grew up with the smiley Superman from Superman the movie, Christopher Reeve's Superman, right? But I've got them. I can see them anytime I want. But this is a different, visceral take on Superman and Batman, and even Wonder Woman in BVS. She's a darker character. She's rejected mankind. She thinks they're scum, and that's pretty much what she's saying. She walked away from them, right? So this is a different version of Wonder Woman. This isn't a Patty Jenkins version. Patty Jenkins' version is the way it is, and it's a bit more brighter. It's still not watered down and a great version, and there's a lot of depth there. But I think Snyder's idea of Wonder Woman was a lot darker than Patty's was, because Patty was encouraged by Jeff Johns to go more mainstream with her. And of course it worked with the box office and the popularity of Gal. And Gal's career, because of the first Wonder Woman movies, just shot up. Quite right too. And so Snyder has a different way of doing things. And when you appoint him to do something, he's going to do it differently. Now, we've already discussed what a bit of a mess it is that Christopher Nolan was brought in to mold the clay. He says no, then brings in Snyder, but Warner Brothers Pictures are not exactly happy about that. But then Warner Brothers Pictures should have said, you know what, Chris, you're not interested in doing this. We're not bringing Zack in, and we'll find somebody else. And I think that would have served the franchise and the money that they wanted to make and what they wanted to do a lot better. But they just allowed the thing to carry on. But again, I'm saying this in an analytical point of view, so you understand where they went wrong. But in terms of Snyder, I love his verse. I think it's amazing. I think Man of Steel, after we talk about 2013, aren't we? And the film was probably made in 2011, 2012. Don't forget the way it looks. It's not dated at all. I'd say the effects and visually, it's probably state of the art even now. I think Snyder was using stuff that they hadn't even thought of at the time. And it stands up to any superhero movie. I think that Captain America, the First Avenger, looks more dated than Man of Steel, and that's interesting to me. And a lot of the early MCU films look pretty dated, but Man of Steel doesn't. BVS was, 4 years ago, so it's not that old. But these films look great. They feel great. When I talk to people about what Snyder does visually, I actually feel that I'm in a comic book, that the comic books come to life, that these characters are quite relatable. They feel like people. They feel like people that maybe I've met before, angry people, confused people. So it's great. And, you know, what Snyder does, he makes them into gladiators. He makes Batman and Superman and Aquaman and Wonder Woman into these new gods, right? And I think that's great. Placing these gods in the real world is so fascinating when it's done in this way. And this is why I'm so excited to see his version of Justice League, because the story continues. That's how I feel about the Snyderverse. This is why I love the Snyderverse, and I'm so happy it's going to continue. Let me know how you feel about the Snyderverse. Comment down below, like, share and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow with more videos. See you again soon.